Omwezi oguwedde nga akalulu kaakaggwa omukyala Justice Esther Kisakye bannayuganda gwe bamanyi ennyo oluvannyuma lw'okuvaayo n'awagira Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu mu musango gwe yatwalayo okusazaamu obuwanguzi bwa General Museveni mu mwaka gwa 2021 yawandiika ebbaluwa 2 ng'emu egenda wa General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni ate endala ng'egenda mu kitongole ekya Electoral Commission Justice Simon Byabakama kyakulemberamu oluvannyuma lw'ebyo ebyabadde mu kalulu k'omwaka gwa 2026. Mu kaseera kano tuli mu kulaba nti bannayuganda bangi nnyo bakyabiwakanya n'olunaku olw'ejjo Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu we yayogereddeko wali eri ku Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy yayongedde okutegeeza nti ebyava mu kulonda wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda si bituufu era birina okusazibwamu. Wabula nga tukomyewo ku nsonga eza Justice Esther Kisakye, ku mulundi guno ngenda kuba nkuwa ddoboozi teyavuddeyo kuwandiika bbaluwa naye mu lukuŋŋaana olwateekeddwa ku mukutu ogwa X mu kiro ekyakeesezza olunaku olwaleero omukyalo ono yayongedde okubaako by'ayogera ebyayongedde okuleetera bannayuganda okwebuuza ddala kiki ekigenda mu maaso mu kisawo eky'ebyobufuzi mu ggwanga erya Uganda. Mu bujjuvu ngenda kuba nkuwa bulungi nnyo eddoboozi lye omukyala Justice Esther Kisakye buli kimu kyonna obeere nga okyewulirirako. Gwampuliriza ku Point Media UG njaga okutegeeza nti ayongedde okuteeka akazito ku kitongole ekya Electoral Commission na butya Justice Simon Byabakama bwali mu kwongera okuttira ddala ekisookera ddala ekitiibwa kyalina ekyobwa justice okubeera omulamuzi, wabula ate era engeri gyali mu kwongera okuttira ddala enkola eya demokolasiya wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda. Mu kiseera kyekimu agenda mu maaso okwebuuza butya General Museveni gy'asobola okweyita omukulembeze w'eggwanga lino erya Uganda ng'ebitongole eby'enjawulo ye kennyini byakontrolinga bigenda mu maaso okulinnyira eddembe ly'obuntu ate okwongera okusebengereza enkola ey'edemokolasiya. Bino ebibuuzo abantu bangi nnyo bali mu kwebuuza amawanga ag'ewabweru, ebitongole okuva mawanga ag'ewabweru, naddala abo abalwanirira eddembe ly'obuntu. Ensonga zirabika okuba nga tezinnaba kukkakkana obunkenke bo bukyeyongera. Kakati omukyalo ono Justice Esther Kisakye agenda kuba atunnyonnyola bulungi nnyo buli kimu kyonna ye ng'omulamuzi butya bw'alaba embeera nga bwe zeetambula mu ggwanga erya Uganda. Ye abaffe bannayuganda abavubuka naddala kaakati abasinga obungi mu ggwanga lyonna bayinza kukolawo ki okwenunula okuva mu bukulembeze obwannakyemalira. Katuwulirize omukyalo ono obutambi bugenda kubeera buwanvumuuko wabula buli kimu kyonna kigenda kuba kitegeerekeke.
I too wrote a letter to the Attorney General, and it was an open letter. And I said, in case of my retirement, how could you have been the lawyer of the president? And in an election petition, which I presided over, and then having represented your client very well, because the president was the incumbent and was the president-elect, and you are his lawyer, and then you were rewarded with the position of Attorney General, so you became a member of the Judicial Service Commission, and you took over the investigations, participated fully, and then advised, the president. What happened to conflict of interest rules? Is that what the office of the Attorney General is supposed to do under our Constitution? And in my letter to him, I said, maybe you are right. Can we have a debate? I've never had a response from him. I know he was busy campaigning, but now maybe that the campaigns are over, I would be glad to have a debate with him, because I asked him, maybe you are right. Can we have a public debate so that you can tell the people of Uganda which provisions of the Constitution you are interpreting? To advise the president, to advise the Judicial Service Commission that a judge who has attained 60 years of age cannot voluntarily retire from the Supreme Court or any other court. These are the things we need to take up. So President Semakade, you raised these issues, and you said, how does my case, how do Ugandans connect with my case? For me, I don't need sympathy. What I call upon the people of Uganda to see is like, if this is happening to a Supreme Court justice who knows the law and who has articulated the law, I told the Attorney General in that letter, the letter is publicly available, that he's incompetent. I also wrote to the president and I said the Attorney General is incompetent, as is endangering. Every day he remains in office, he's endangering our country, because if he can't give advice, proper advice on a matter as simple as a judge can retire after attaining 60 years? What other how are we sure that he's giving correct advice on much more complex and maybe much more complex issues than that? So we need to examine some of the things, and I know there are many fronts we need to tackle, but I would be happy to partner with the Ugandans, the bar, and the other Ugandans to tackle some of these people and say, why should you hold this office? You know, and engage. Because otherwise, how can you proudly be up and say, I am the Attorney General of Uganda, but this constitution, this provision reads this, but for me, it reads this. You may say so, but tell us what is your basis. If there are cases, cite the cases that back up your interpretation. Otherwise, what are you doing in that office? The same for Justice Byabakama. The results are declared at, each polling station. When the Ugandans vote, the election, the results are declared at each polling station, right? And I think if I need to look at this, I wanted to look at it before, but a copy is supposed to be left. Somebody can check it up. A copy of the results, declaration forms are supposed to be left at each polling station. But some of these polling stations were put in, some were put in roads, schools, open spaces. So where were those copies pinned? President Semakade, can you check that out?
My Lord, we shared with you our elections report.
Yes, yes.
We found non-compliance, substantial non-compliance in every polling station. We
Yeah, good.
found non-compliance at the tally center, national tally center. None of the safeguards were complied with.
So how can those results be valid? And just Byabakama, I saw a video, because sometimes it says beware of fake videos, but this was a video where he was recording it, and it's available on Twitter, where he was like saying, why are Ugandans complaining? What is wrong? How can you give Ugandans totals when you haven't shown them how you have arrived at those totals? We lawyers are known not to be good at math. So I don't know whether, now he became a professor of math, but lawyers are not, our specialty is not mathematics. But in any case, why don't you give us the opportunity to also add up? Declare. Why did we have the polling stations in the first place if we're not going to follow that? How can it be that when we are voting, we have polling stations, then at the tail end of the results, we have your totals? You know?
Doctor, the Ugandan society has called for his resignation
No, before he
and that of the
resigns.
entire commission.
Before he resigns, he owes Ugandans an explanation, because he has been in this position, and he has gazetted results where there are questions, and he's not answering the questions. And now I saw something where they are going around and threatening. Is it Uganda Communications Commission is issuing a communication to radios? Why don't you want Ugandans to voice their concerns about how this process was conducted? The same way you decided in this day of technology that elections should be conducted in darkness. What are you hiding, Justice Byabakama? Because if you have nothing to hide,
Maybe,
if you have nothing to hide, then you want all the transparency. Technology is here with us to
Dr.
stay.
Kisakye, if I may intervene a bit here to give you some breathing space. Um, some time back, I think it was 2010 or thereabouts, the the Constitutional Court issued a judgment in Honorable Jim Muhwezi
Yes.
versus Attorney General regarding Justice Faith Mwanda holding a job outside the judiciary. the nature of whose functions might bring the institution of the judiciary in disrepute. In that particular case, Justice Faith Monda, a High Court judge then, had accepted appointment as the Inspector General of Government. And the unanimous verdict of the judges of the Constitutional Court was that no matter, they had no doubt that she intended to serve with integrity. She was driven, to end corruption. But their worry was, after reviewing a series of authorities across the USA, the Commonwealth, South Africa, and elsewhere, including neighboring Kenya, their view was that the executive has mastered. Am I still audible?
Yes.
Yeah, the executive had mastered a technique of cannibalizing judges and the prestige of judicial office to do the worst evil, to do the worst violations. And in this case, for instance, to use the inspectorate to conduct political persecution in the name of anti-corruption trials. And that perception, that if the public attained that perception, the judge would bring damage to the judiciary, because every wrongful search, every wrongful charge sheet, every wrongful step taken would be associated with a judge at the helm of this institution. We are seeing it now with Justice Byabakama, because every wrongful step taken in the conduct of a national election is associated with the title justice. And I guess that was the intention before, So a decision was taken again in 2020. I think the case is Bob Kasango versus Attorney General, to prevent this process, to prevent judges who lack self-restraint. An injunction was issued that they shouldn't accept these overtures from the executive to serve outside the judiciary in this manner. In 2020 still, they passed the Administration of Judiciary Act to make it very clear that extrajudicial assignments should not go beyond 3 years, and they should come with specific conditions in the act. Now, the Supreme Court, under the former Chief Justice, issued an injunction freezing this constitutional verdict, enabling Justice Byabakama to serve in this function and to do the things he has done, and to destroy the good name of our judiciary the way he has done, because now we are speaking of him as a justice. Yet we all know that the election was handled by the military. He was just a figurehead. He was just a rubber stamp. So the sins of the military, the ugly boot of the military, the ugly, stench of the gun has been sanitized, I guess, by the name judge, and that's what Ugandans will remember. So that increases the work of cleaning our judiciary. I think that's what I wanted to add on this point.
Yeah, but for me, I agree with you, but I just wanted to have one point of departure
I
for all those
apologize.
who are holding public
Do we
office.
have technical? Judge, I can't seem to hear you. Brian, Brian, can you give us a voice check? Okay. Sandra?
You can't.
Mr. President,
Yes,
you
I
are
can hear
audible
you.
as well as
Okay, so
Yes.
it's the judge we can't hear?
No, she was audible.
The judge
She
is
was
audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I should shut up.
I I was
All right,
just saying,
Sandra, I hand over to you. My intervention is done.
but I'm also mindful of people who need to go to sleep. So I'll just make these
I think I'm
comments
going
and
to
maybe.
first go off so I can get the judge clear.
Hello.
Yes, Justice Kisakye. I'll hand over to Sandra. Sandra, I think it was you taking
Yeah,
up.
but yeah, we need to maybe. Yeah, I know we have
To wrap
exceeded
it
our
up.
time, but I just wanted to say this. These are things. I think the challenges that are facing our country will have to be. There are many, and we have to tackle them systematically because different strategies are needed for different challenges. Now, in the case of Justice Byabakama, yes, resignation is one of them. But when the president was saying is like he was a figurehead, whether he was a figurehead or not, once you decide to what to you accept to serve in an office and you remain in that office, you remain accountable. In 1980, since we had some genesis, I just want to say in the 1980s, when the elections that led to President Museveni and some of the his colleagues going to start the Bush War, as it's usually called, we had elections, and I think the person who was in charge of those elections was Sekono, if I'm not mistaken. And the late Paulo Mwanga ordered that he shouldn't release those results. And I think Sekono had to, didn't declare and I think had to run to exile, I think, to protect himself. But, and then out of that, of course, the president decided to take the armed struggle route. Uh, so what I'm trying to say, this pretext, because I saw the same thing with the chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, is like, I can't do anything because I'm being threatened. Yes, when you take over these offices, it comes with privilege and honor, but it also comes with the responsibility. And you should be able to discharge that responsibility. The moment you realize that you can't discharge that responsibility, bow out. Bow out. But this continuation of saying, oh, I'm here, but you see, I am powerless. When the constitution, is you're holding a constitutional office or a public office and the powers, are vested in that office, who do we hold accountable? That kind of reasoning has led us into this situation where you have a holder who is saying, I'm here, but I'm not in charge. And then you have actors who are actually driving the show, but you can't reach them because they are not anywhere on the book. We know Justice Byabakama is the chairperson of the Uganda Electoral Commission, and he's answerable for all electoral matters. The moment he realized that he was not in charge, that's the moment he should have said, either to the powers that be, allow me to do my work the way I'm supposed to do it under the constitution, or I'm stepping down. That's what acting honorably means. You don't stay in office, take orders from left, right, and the center, where spokespersons of the Uganda People's Defense Forces are making statements on elections. The Chief of Defense Forces is also addressing the nation on how the elections will be held, when constitutionally you can't, attribute these matters to them. They're supposed to, their roles are cut out. The role of the Uganda Electoral Commission is cut out from the role of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, from the role of the police. And even when you are keeping law and order or keeping us safe, Uganda is not the only country where elections are held and where we have armies. Those roles can be properly handled. But if you are going to have the army stopping Ugandans going to attend rallies, to attend those rallies, and you call that security, that's not security. How can it be security? What is security? Have plain armed, members of the force pick out the law, the Ugandans who are not behaving according to the law. But you can't have a blanket, like this whole crowd of 1,000 people are all criminals. They are going to attend a criminal event, especially.
Oyo y'omukyala Justice Esther Kisakye. Ebibuuzo bingi nnyo okugenda eri abantu nga Justice Simon Byabakama wabula ate okuddibwamu kutono nnyo. Akakati mu kiseera kye kimu ngenda kuba nkuwa n'ebimu ku ebyo omukyala ono byagenza maaso okwogera ne ku mbeera nga bw'etambula mu sisitemu eya Judicial. Ejjukira nti nno bannayuganda oluvannyuma lw'okubanga Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu akakodyo kakozesezza okulabisa gavumenti ya Mwami Museveni, ebitongole bingi nnyo kaakati bikubwamu ebituli. Ebitongole ebyabalamuzi gy'oyinza okuyita essiga erya Judicial, palamenti ekubiddwamu ebituli, poliisi awamu n'ebitongole ebirala byonna byonna ebikuumaddembe bikubiddwamu ebituli. Wabula omukyala ono ezimu ku nsonga z'akubyemu ttooki zeezo ez'ebitongole ekya Judicial. Kakati awo tugenda kutuuka wabula okusookera ddala anyongera okujjukiza Hajjati Nakalembe omusomi w'edduwa ono ng'asangibwawo e Busaabala ku siteegi esembayo. Mutukire agenda kuba akulombera edduwa ekizibu oba agazibu g'obadde olina gabeere nga gakolebwako era obulamu bwo buddemu okweyagaza. Nnamba kojja okumusanga ne bw'oba ng'oli wabweru w'eggwanga erya Uganda, tosobwa omukisa guno eri noti 7523
Salamu alaikum. Hajjati Nakalembe omusomi w'edduwa. Bw'oba wenyiye embeera embi yankusomere ku dduwa. Abali ebweru mirimu gigaanye papula zeesibye kino kyekyoto kwesabira omukisa kobe ng'odiriddawa wali wenkusabira n'ofuna emikisa. Ky'oba olaba ngabirira ebinyonyi ebitalina kyakulya naawe atalina mulimu jangu kusomere ku dduwa ofuna omukisa. Eno ennyanja kwesula buli kimu ekisira ne kiba kikujjudde nekikasuka mu nnyanja nekikunta nekigenda. Nze Hajjati Nakalembe kambawo ennamba yange yeeno 0752537529. Temuddeeyo ne mwebakira ebizibu mukobe ku nnamba yange eno.
Tedev ku mukuto ogwa Point Media UG kwokyali katubeere nga tweyongerayo ne submission ey'omukyala Justice Esther Kisakye, omulamuzi wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda, omu ku abo abatinye ennyo abagenze mu maaso okuyimirira ne bannayuganda oba okusalawo okutaputa amateeka mu nkola yaago entuufu, so si okuba ng'ate aweereza omuntu omu eyeddiza obuyinza mu ggwanga erya Uganda.
Uganda, you need to be looking at how do we navigate this space. And for some of us who have been there, would be happy to engage with you about how to navigate this space, especially now the political space. You can't have a situation. We need to examine how some of these principles play out in the political space. For example, in ordinary law, if you have if you employ a driver, right, and the driver goes and knocks people, you are vicariously liable, right? That's a principle. If you or you have employees and the Attorney General is supposed to be, we are supposed to be responsible if you have employees doing things that end up injuring the property of others. But now you have a situation in our governance where you have masked, uniformed soldiers who have even removed their names. And now, like in the recent case of the lawyer who was locked, thrown on the pickup, I saw the tape by Honorable Nambeshe. Yeah.
Judge, apologies for intervening. The lawyer's name is called Kakuru Tumsime.
Yeah, but in that case, I saw, but the point I had to say, Honorable Nambeshe, who led that delegation, he called the Inspector General of Police. And the Inspector General of Police is saying, talk to those guys and talk to those on the ground and let them follow the chain of command. So who is in charge? Is it the Inspector General of Police, or the small or the junior officer who is stationed in front of Robert Kyagulanyi's house? How can we have this kind of it's like circus? If you are the Inspector General of Police and you have soldiers wearing police uniform, you should be able to know who is stationed in front of Chagulanyi. How can you now defer to, to citizens, to the officers to say follow the order, the chain of command, when they are telling you we want to go in this house and visit and check on our clients? So if the soldiers on the ground have removed their names, and we can't get them, we know the name of the Inspector General of Police. And we are the ones who know the law should now put pressure on the Inspector General of Police to account why we have a roadblock in front of Robert Chagulanyi's house, violating the rights of not only Robert Chagulanyi but all the owners in the area. How can you camp on the private property of a Ugandan citizen? How? Has a crime been committed in the ground, in the home of, Robert Chagulanyi? Has a crime been committed there? These are things we are talking about. You can't have it. How can you claim to have a rule of the rule of law in Uganda when you can, armed soldiers can, or armed people in uniform, whether army or police, can just go and decide to create a military barracks in the home of a Ugandan citizen, even if he's the head of a political party. Even when we are doing investigations, you don't have those rights. And for how long do you cordon off if there's a crime, but there's no crime, but we have camped there because we are in leadership. These things must stop. For those who are in leadership, you are, it's a shame to all of us. Let's not continue shaming. If you have no shame, personally, Uganda has a name. Uganda has a name. Let's protect our name, because all of us, we can't just turn into Kenyans or Americans or whatever it is. There's a process if you are lucky. But as long as we haven't assumed the citizenship of another country, we are Ugandans. But we can't have this situation where there are laws on private property, and as lawyers, we need to find a creative way of putting pressure on some of these things to stop. If you contest in an election, that is a political contest. But you also have a right to home, which is protected, and your privacy is protected under Article, I think, 26 of the Constitution. Is it 26 or 27? I haven't checked. So let's stop
It
this.
is
Sorry?
it is 27, my lord.
27. Yeah.
And 26 for property.
26, yeah. So this
26 for
impunity
property.
must stop. And by the way, I'm saying all this as a peace-loving Ugandan, and we love peace. But peace which comes at the cost of violating the rights of Ugandans or some Ugandans is not peace. We all have a right to enjoy peace. You can't say for us we have peace, let those ones not have peace. Where are they going to go? That's why I said if you don't want them, cut off a part of Uganda so that the rest of us, the some of us who believe we can talk to others who don't agree with, maybe we'll live in Western Uganda, Western or Eastern, I don't know. But let's just divide Uganda into two. The one where those who believe, lock up everybody, take over anybody's house, camp wherever you want to camp, kill whoever you want to kill. Let them live in one part of Uganda. But that's not the Uganda we were born into, and the Uganda we all, subscribe to, and the Uganda that we, is supposed to be as a country.
How can these citizens rather contribute to restoring judicial independence and ending impunity in Uganda? it could be a two-way factor, both the legal end and non-legal. Over to you, Dr. Kisakye.
Let me start with the judicial independence. I think my comments are still relevant. When we talk about judicial independence, if you go back, like I said, for now, if we agree that the 1995 Constitution is our supreme law and governing document, judges are exercising power on behalf of the people of Uganda. So the judges are supposed to hear disputes and they are supposed to follow the Constitution and the law. So when you file a case, first of all, as a person, you need, and this applies to everyone, judges decide cases that have been brought before them. If you have a good case, make sure that as you conduct your affairs, you keep your documentation properly. If you buy land, make sure that the agreement is properly witnessed. You take photographs. Gen Zs even keep some of these documents on X, email, so that like if somebody comes to grab your land, for example, you have the evidence. Where, when you are paying them, where are you paying them? They are, are you giving cash? Are you getting receipts? Are you making sure you get their national IDs? So there are different ways of documenting all that. And then when you bring a strong case to court, then insist on your rights. Some of the judges, I've been a judge, I will defend some of my colleagues. It's not, sometimes you have bad tomatoes good tomatoes. Not all judges are bad. Some are trying to do their job, while we have within our midst, again, corrupt judges. But how are you going to distinguish between a corrupt judge and a non-corrupt judge if you don't bring a good case to court? So bring a good case to court. Make sure that your lawyers, and now I'm talking about lawyers. Lawyers have also, I'm sorry to say, but you have also soiled the names of many judges when you say this money is for me, my legal fees, and then these other parties to take to the judge. When I was serving at the Supreme Court of Uganda, they told us there was a man whom we had never talked about, who used to come and sit in in open court, and he was collecting bribes on our behalf. When we tried to nab him, but we had never talked to him. He would access the reading, the the cause list and find the judges, and I don't know what he was doing, but there's real corruption by the judges, but sometimes there's also real corruption by court staff. And then unscrupulous lawyers, unfortunately, also contribute to that. And then even the public. So let's do our part. Let's live a life of integrity as individuals. And then when it comes to talking about the price, there are different ways. When you object or you are not agreeable with a different position, you don't have to wake up and fight with the person that you don't agree with. Each one of us will have to sit down in our community with our friends. For example, boycotting, boycott used to be one of the measures in the past. If you read our constitutional history, our grandfathers, they used strategies of boycott. They used strategies of, like I saw one of the leaders, I think one of the new MPs saying, let's shun them. Let's shun whoever is engaging in this. Let's show our displeasure that we do not, this is the standard. Any opportunity to have, this is the standard that we are going to follow, and we are not agreeable to this. So you will each one have to find a creative way. This space does not give us enough time to delve into this. If we need to have more time, maybe we'll create another time when we will have to say. But if we are going to discuss all our strategies on X, then the enemy will come and crush us. So we will need to find safe spaces where we discuss some of these things, in different groups. As student leaders, what do we do? If you have a corrupt whatever, if you have a corrupt leader, if you have a corrupt relative, if you have this. So there will need to be maybe the R&B will have to think about creative ways where people can we can share these different strategies. What has worked in Kenya, for example? I had a lawyer from Kenya saying ours is better. So what is working in Kenya that can't work in Uganda? Is it that we are less civilized than the Kenyans? How did the Kenyans do it? I, for one, I recommended, for example, for judicial independence. I said, let's have a judiciary-wide inquiry into corruption. I know, and because now I'm being labeled as the worst judge ever in Uganda for having disagreed with my Chief Justice to follow the Constitution. That has earned me, the tribunal I'm supposed to be facing. And I'm like, why are you wasting time? The real problems in Uganda are corruption. We have judicial impunity, judicial corruption, and corruption by other public officials. We have public scandals, that go on uninvestigated. So if it is we want to clean up the judiciary and ensure judicial independence, let's bring good cases to court. Let our lawyers do their best. But on the side of the judiciary, let's also pull up our socks. If you are writing a judgment, I know we judicial officers, for those who do that, we write this. I've reviewed the law. I've carefully reviewed the law and the evidence, and I'm convinced, and I agree with the testimony of this party and the other party. What have you reviewed? Which law have you reviewed? I know we have problems of backlog, but these kind of judgments make us susceptible to allegations of corruption, and it becomes very difficult because when you don't go through those steps, sometimes you can even commit errors when you haven't even been corrupt, indefensible errors. You haven't reviewed the law carefully, you haven't reviewed the evidence carefully and gone through the steps, but because you want a case off your table, you say, I've carefully reviewed the law. And later on, it turns out that the law actually, demands that you should have decided for one party and you decided for the other. How do you defend yourself against charges of corruption or incompetence, for that matter? So for me, I am retired, but I'm on record. If anybody wants to clean up the image of the judiciary of Uganda, I'm ready to come and line up as a retired judicial officer. Let my record be examined. I served with integrity, and I never took a bribe. So those judicial officers who are not corrupt, you should not have a problem joining me and say, I'm not corrupt. This is my record. Okay? So that we can take the tomatoes out of the good ones, and we continue serving the people of Uganda. As long as we keep quiet, when you are an accomplice, if you keep quiet, then we all get the stain of corrupt judges, incompetent judges, and we need to clear up our names. Let's clear up our names by writing sound judgments. When it comes to impunity, again, we need to call out our leaders. First of all, our leaders. We are usually focused on the presidents, but look at the MPs. I've seen many people being charged by the Computer Misuse Act. Who passed the Computer Misuse Act? It's some members of parliament. And some of them have been elected back in parliament. These are supposed to be your representatives. So if somebody is abusing you and there is no substance in what they're saying, the law already provided for defamation. I, for one, have some pending defamation cases in court. Okay? Although the courts have refused to date to give me a hearing, or failed to give me a hearing. But you don't lock up somebody because they have spoken, badly about you. That is cowardice. If they are talking about your work, then let's look at your work. Did you comply with the standards? That is the judicial impunity people are talking about. And we judges, if we don't do our work, unfortunately, that will continue. And by the way, as a retired judge, I want to say, in the case of Omnyoko, for example, you are not the first ones. Judges have always been abused. Even judges in the United States. Just check out on Google at the Supreme Court how the Americans say our judges have lost it. They are nuts and that kind of thing. In the Omnyoko case, for example, Omnyoko a memo to all of us. And his memo was that he did not trust judges from central and western Uganda. He trusted judges from the north and northeast. And I read that memo. And I was, of course, startled. I was like, how can justice be measured in terms of which part of the country you come from? But I said, okay, this is his belief. I'm going to do justice to this matter. When I issued the Omnyoko judgment, Omnyoko was, people at the court told me, he was like, Kisakye is the only judge at the Supreme Court. But I come from central Uganda. And I'd switched. I didn't talk to him. I didn't take a bribe from him. But he looked at the judgment of the majority and looked at my dissent, and he was like, wow. I think he sat down and said, maybe I'd misjudged this judge. We need to earn the respect of Ugandans by doing the right thing. And we have the constitution to guide us. We have laws to guide us. Let's not hide behind our wigs and our judicial robes to be corrupt, to judge cases with impunity, or to hide behind public offices and, unleash the law on Ugandans who are enforcing the constitution. It is very unfortunate. And the more we do it, we are digging a grave for all of us. And if Uganda collapses, we shall all be buried in it. And the other countries are closing their doors by the day. For those who think that they are pushing, jabs at Justice Sache, I'm out of the country for now. Try now to come where I am, and you see if you go through how many will go through the immigration. And that's happening in the other countries. And these countries are right. Why should we mess up our country and then we run to other countries where they are following the law? You see? Why? These are the questions citizens of other countries are asking. So, and the other thing for Genesis, I just want to tell you that for us who have, I'm 66 years old, and I've seen governments come and governments fall. When Idi Amin took over Kampala, I was in Kampala. Okay? Actually, my father was in primary 7. So I saw the government of Idi Amin fall. I saw the government of Obote fall. The government Obote, Obote 1, Obote Amin, Obote 2. So, and beyond Uganda, we've seen other governments fall. So those who are in leadership, my prayer, President Museveni, and your son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, members of the police, please follow the constitution and do the right thing. You'll earn the love and respect of Ugandans if you do the right thing. And when it comes to the elections, we need an audit. The recently concluded elections did not meet the international standards for organizing free and fair elections in Uganda. You can't have your rivals being beaten, being stopped to campaign, and then all this, the army taking over the process of, the electoral process, and then at the end of the day, you say someone was declared a winner. How? Under what law? The army is not supposed to be involved in election processes. So this impunity is continuing, unfortunately, especially by the current leadership, which came into power to liberate Ugandans according to their, the records, but now has turned around to do what they are doing. They are read, they know the law, and they put the same constitution in power which they are violating. So our duty as Ugandans are to speak up. Of course, for some of us who are speaking from safety, we continue to speak up. But we're also going to look at other avenues of how we can have this message, communicated. And but as Ugandans, if you're in the country, you can have a silent, in law there's something called shunning. Let's shun them. Or let's write, anyway, there are many things that we could say, but let each one of us look at what we can do in our capacities, of course, taking into account your personal situation, and do what you can do. Thank you.
Oyo nno ye Justice Esther Kisakye. Sigenda kwongerako kyange. Mbeebaza bwebaza okuba nga mukyekuumidde ku mukutu gwa Point Media UG. Mbagaliza olunaku olulungi nga mweraba.